All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming. It's so cool to see out there, but imagining some of you are like me and glad to just get out of the house for the first time in a few days after being snowed in on weekends. So I appreciate you taking the time to trudge through the cold and come out to class. Before we begin, just a quick announcement about the in-class assignment you did last week. I have started chipping away at grading them, and by that I mean I think I looked at maybe two or three of them. So 95% of you probably still don't have a grade for that first assignment. But my goal is to get those done by the end of the week this week. So hopefully you'll see that updated by the end of the week. Just based on what I saw in class last Thursday, I was very happy with what I saw. Very happy that everybody came and participated. I don't think there's going to be any, too many negative grades happening out there, but I do plan to go through all of those and give you a little bit of feedback on those, and you'll hopefully get that by the end of the week. That's my goal anyway. Um, as far as today goes, today we're going to be talking about text editors, and actually, specifically, I'm going to be introducing you to one text editor. But before we talk about that, let's kind of talk about why I'm talking to you about text editors today, uh, and why you need to learn another one, because I imagine most of you probably already know how to use a text editor, or maybe even know how to use something called an IDE, an integrated development environment. What's the difference? So an IDE, something like Eclipse or IntelliJ, VS Code is kind of an IDE, kind of a text editor. It's kind of trying to do both things a little bit. But the big difference between just a regular text editor and an IDE is the fact that the integrated development environment is going to provide you with tools related to programming, tools that will allow you to compile and run your code, tools that will allow you to debug your code. Whereas a text editor by itself usually does not provide those utilities, does not provide that functionality. It is quite literally just to edit the text. So VS Code at its core actually is a text editor, but with its extensions, it becomes sort of IDE like Eclipse or IntelliJ or things along those lines. The things that I'm going to talk to you about today, though, are pure text editors. We're not going to be talking about compiling and running code today. What that means is that if you're using this text editor to work with code, you then need to take the additional steps of running the code afterwards, something that I'm hoping to talk to you about on Thursday, as a matter of fact. Why is it a good idea to learn how to use a text editor, especially if you already know how to use one like VS Code? The one I'm going to show you today is a command line based text editor. So there are multiple types of command line based text editors out there. The one that I'm going to show you today is called Vim. And Vim has been around for quite some time. Actually, VI, without the M on the end, it was the precursor to Vim. It was released in the 70s. And then sometime in the 90s, a group of people sort of revived it to make an improved version. That's when it gained the M and became Vim. That group that took it over in the 90s still is working on Vim, still is adding improvements, still trying to keep it up to date and compatible with modern programming, modern languages, things like that. It's not the only one that's out there. So I think I want to be clear that I'm teaching you Vim because it's a popular one. It's the one that I happen to have the most experience with, but it's not the only one. I think that all of you should know at least one command line text editor. It doesn't necessarily have to be Vim, though. A lot of students who I speak to in this class are already familiar with maybe Nano is a popular one. I don't know if Nano is generally popular, or I know some of the labs around here use Nano, and maybe that's why students are getting access to it because some of the professors are using it in their labs. But regardless, it doesn't really matter to me, right? Whether you know how to use Vim or know how to use Nano, Emacs, another popular text editor that exists on the command line. I really think that it's important for you to just know one of them, and know how to use it relatively well. You don't need to be an expert, but I think it is important to pick one and use it relatively well. I'm choosing Vim for all of the people who have never used one before, right? And if you go through today and you use Vim and you absolutely hate it, okay, totally fair. Take a look at Nano. See if that one better suits your programming style. It really doesn't matter to me which one you use. I just think it's important that you have one of them available to you for the same reason that I've already kind of mentioned in previous classes. A lot of what we're working on in this class is tools and ways to interact with the computer that'll work on any machine that you come across, especially if it is a machine that you're not even physically next to, right? It's in a closet in a different building on campus or in a data center halfway around the world. We're going to be remoting into those machines and accessing them via the command line. So being able to use a command line text editor is pretty essential for doing that kind of work. Because we're not going to have direct access to that computer. We're not always going to have the fancy Windows or access to VS Code or something like that. That being said, what I use Vim for is mostly just quick little edits. I'm not using Vim to write out all of my code from scratch from the very beginning. Some people do. Some people love it. Some people love using the command line and using these command line text editors, and they get really, 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 really good at it. They become power users. It's not really me. I know the basics. I know maybe a little bit more than the basics. And I use it to do quick edits on computers, especially ones that I don't have direct access to. That's 99% of what I use Vim for. And I use VS Code to write my code, right? Just like I'm sure most of you probably do as well. So I'm not introducing this as a replacement for VS Code, but just in addition to VS Code, another way to interact with the computer, again, especially focus on the command line. The learning curve is kind of steep. I think you'll see that today. The best way to get through that learning curve is practice. So that's what I'm going to be encouraging you to do today is get lots and lots of practice. We're going to have at least a few rounds of exercises. But the hope is that you'll know enough to make small, quick edits. And if you want to become one of those power users and learn how to use Vim and start using it for everything, there's a lot of community resources available to you, a lot of other people out there who are doing that, if that is the route you want to take. But with all that in mind, let's go ahead and start playing around with it a little bit. Hopefully you've already got your terminal up, your command line up. And the way to start Vim, surprise, surprise, is to type the word Vim. But that's not all. We also need to provide a file name after it. So what is the file that you wish to edit? If that file doesn't exist, it will create it for you. So I could easily do something like vim test.txt. I don't think that file exists, but that's okay. It'll create it for me. And if I run this command, we actually get taken into the Vim interface. This is a blank file because it is brand new. It even tells me down at the bottom that it's a new file, right? That's why there's nothing in it. I actually, though, would rather look at a file that has some stuff in it so that we can do some real text editing and I don't have to type a whole bunch of stuff to fill this up. So what I would like to do next is tell you how to exit Vim, which might seem a little trivial, but I assure you it's actually not. The most upvoted question on Stack Overflow, at least it used to be, I'm not quite sure if it still is, but it used to be, how do I exit Vim? Because a lot of people get stuck in Vim and can't figure out how to get out. If you type exit, right, that doesn't work. It didn't do what I thought. If you type quit, it doesn't work, right? So what is the magic way to get out of here? I think it's a very important first step. For starters, hit the escape key just in case. You may not need to, but hit the escape key. This makes sure that we're in command mode. Vim has multiple different modes. I'm going to show you two of those modes as we go through today. But for right now, we want to make sure we're in command mode. Then type a colon. You can see the colon appeared at the bottom of the screen. And from here, we have a couple of choices. Colon Q is for quit. Colon Q is for quit. If I do this, though, it's probably going to put up a message. It did display it on the screen real quick, but not fast enough for you to see. It said that I hadn't made any writes, meaning I hadn't saved my changes. So that's actually telling us to do one of two things. If I type WQ, colon WQ, that stands for write quit. That means it's going to save the file and quit the program. Or if you don't want to save the file, you just want to get rid of it, you can type Q exclamation point, where the exclamation point is quit, damn it. Like do it. Do the thing that I'm telling you to do. Don't complain, just do it. So I did Q exclamation point to just get what I'd like to do next is actually grab a file with some text in it so that we can actually do some text editing techniques. And I'm going to use curl to pull this text from the course website. So if you go onto Canvas on today's date, the very first link at the top is alice.txt. If you want to right click and download this, the old fashioned way, that's totally fine. But I'm going to use curl to do it. And just as a reminder, I'm going to use curl. The flags I'm going to use are capital O, very important, that's capital O, and then K. So dash OK. And then paste in the address. I'll leave this up here on the screen in case anybody is trying to copy or follow along with me. And then once you run that command, it'll show you that it's going to download this particular file. This is a copy of the full text, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is an interesting book. Highly recommend you give it a read if you haven't done so already. It's in the public domain, which means we get to use it for free, and we don't have to worry about copyright or anything like that, which is why I chose it for today. Once you download it using curl, you can open it up in Vim with this command, vim alice.txt. Oops, okay. This is an error that I'm getting because I used this in the previous class today, but I'm actually not all that upset that it happened. This is a pretty common screen to see when opening Vim if you have issues with multiple copies of files. If I'm ever in this situation, I'm almost always going to choose E for edit anyway. So maybe you saw that message, maybe you didn't. Mine happened very much because of the fact that I already did this once today. So I had an old copy on my machine from class this morning. I wouldn't expect you to necessarily get that image, but once you get it all up and running, here's what it will look like. There's a bunch of introductory stuff at the beginning, and the actual text starts a bit farther down. But let's talk about navigation. You can use the arrow keys. But remember, we don't have the mouse, so I think actually scrolling does work with the mouse, but clicking on stuff isn't really going to do it, right? So we have to use the arrow keys, or the more traditional way of navigating around Vim is to use the H, J, K, and L keys. So L goes to the right and H goes to the left. You can see my cursor moving, hopefully, on the release date line. And then J goes down, whereas K goes up. This is the way that, actually, if you can imagine it, going way back to the 70s when VI first came out, arrow keys were not common keys found on the keyboard. So that's why H, J, K, and L are used to navigate through Vim files. Since arrow keys are pretty common these days, it's certainly fine to use the arrow keys to navigate through the file. However, there's other ways, I would say, more useful ways of navigating through this file. So I want to show you a couple of what are called motions. My cursor is right up here on this first word, this. And if I start hitting the W key from here, you'll notice that it goes to the next word. So I'm not moving one character at a time, but I'm moving one word at a time. And if I want to go backwards, so that moves me forward to the next word. If I hit the B key, that goes backwards. So you can see every time I hit the B key, my cursor is moving backwards. W takes you to the beginning of the next word. The E key takes you to the end of the next word. So depending on whether you want the beginning of the word or the end of the word, W and E both move you forwards. B moves you backwards. B for backwards. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, well, if H, J, K, and L, and W, E, and B are used to move around the file, what if I actually want to type something? How do I use H, J, K? What if I want to type in words that use W and E's and B's? That's where the different modes of Vim come into play. The mode that we're in right now and the mode that you start in by default is the command mode. So when you type things in command mode, it is not going to be entered as text. It's going to be treated as commands. So the W command is take me to the next word, right? The B command is take me backwards. If I want to enter text as opposed to running a command, we first have to switch to what's called insert mode. And the way that we do that is by hitting the I key. Once I hit the I key, you'll actually see the word insert appear at the bottom so that we know that we're in the insert mode. And if you want to get back to the command mode from the insert mode, hit the escape key and that insert will go away. But if you're in insert mode and you start typing, it does what you would expect, right? So now when I type letters, it's not running them as commands, it's actually inserting them into the text of the document. And then I can hit the escape key whenever I'm done to go back to command mode and start running more Vim commands. Now, we do need to use insert mode, and we will use insert mode, but one of the main goals of Vim is efficiency. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. So we want to use commands as much as possible. Those power users, the people that use Vim for everything, stay out of insert mode as much as they possibly can and try to accomplish things using commands as much as possible. So that's going to be kind of one of the themes as we go through today. Let me show you a couple of other techniques for manipulating stuff in Vim. If you want to, let's see. So let me move things back. Here I am on this line with the title, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. My cursor is right at the beginning. Let's say I want to type some stuff on the end of this line. Type some stuff on the end of this. The best way to do that is to use the append command. So if I hit Shift A or capital A, notice that my cursor jumped all the way to the end of the line, and it's now in insert mode, so it's waiting for me to type more stuff. So Shift A is append mode. It'll jump you to the end of the line and let you type more stuff in. Or another way of manipulating text, I hit the escape key to get me out of insert mode. If I want to delete stuff, of course, one way we can delete stuff is to go into insert mode and then, hit the backspace button to delete stuff. That does work. But again, we want to try and avoid using insert mode as much as we possibly can. So there's a command that will allow us to delete stuff without entering insert mode. That is the X command. If I type X by itself, you'll see that it deletes one letter at a time. So that, in conjunction with the motion keys that I showed you, W, E, and B, allows us to jump around the file fairly quickly and then just hit the X key to delete chunks. We don't need to go into the insert mode. That's a good thing. Vim users would say that's the goal, is to avoid insert mode as much as possible. Get used to using these commands to edit the text instead. All right, I'm about to turn you loose on your first set of exercises, actually. But before we do, a little reminder, if you want to exit, first make sure you're in command mode by hitting escape, then type colon, and from here you have two choices. If you want to save the changes that you've made, you would type WQ for write and quit. If you don't want to save the changes that you've made, you would say Q exclamation point. That's going to throw away any changes that you've made to this file since you opened it. This is just for practice, so it doesn't really matter if we use WQ or Q exclamation point for our purposes. But either way, run that command to get us back to the command line. And I want to get you some practice. All of the exercises today are meant to get your hand on the keyboard, practicing using Vim. In order to do these exercises, you're going to need to download some files. So I think the best way to do this, if you've been using curl, is to hit the up arrow, go back to your curl command, the one that you used to download Alice in Wonderland, and then modify it. Instead of alice.txt, download exercise1.txt. That's going to be the first exercise that I'm going to turn you loose on. If I cat this file, oops, I forgot the one. Here's what this file looks like, and then let me put the instructions up here as well for you. So for this first sentence, I want you to use the deletion command. That is the X key, right? Use the X key to get rid of these extra letters. You can see that there are several extra letters in here. I also want you to use the insert mode to fix the line in number 2 to make it match. For number 3, use that append mode to jump to the end of the line and type out the last part. And then also make sure you understand how to save the file and quit Vim. As I mentioned, that is kind of a tricky step for people. So get some more practice doing that. I'm going to shut up and let you get to work on these. Feel free to talk to your neighbors. I'll be around if you have any questions, and we'll go through these in 5 to 10 minutes. The instructions are up here, so number 2 wants to use search. That's the only one you have to use insert mode on. I guess number 3 kind of through the append command. Thing. No, you're good, man. Have fun. We're just doing the exercises. Don't worry about that. Oh, for sure. Not a problem at all. That's video in the crowd. That's more important than class and present. So take care of yourself. Video will be posted probably by this evening or something. Take care. Yeah. Yes. No assignments, just exercise, just practice. Next in class assignment is a week. They're gonna go back. So you usually get up right by going to class after it's different than like there's that they can do things work for me. She's no energy. No, that's true. Oh. They're her needs are depth. I guess yeah. That's simply like they're big numbers. One or two more minutes on these, or I'm gonna go through them. Oh, so like let's say yeah, well, that's it's like because yeah, and things like that. That's going to like you can tell graduation. So I was like, I know. It's gonna credit. Alrighty, it's okay if you didn't get through all of these, but I'm gonna keep things moving and open up this first exercise and go through it real quick. So, Vim exercise 1.txt to open the file. For the first one, it wanted you to get rid of the extra characters. So I see there are some extra L's, or one extra L at least. Bonus points if you remember to use the W key to help move you to the next word instead of using the arrows to scroll you one letter at a time, right? That's more of the Vim way of doing things, is using those quicker motions. So I can jump to the next words that I care about and move a little bit quicker through the file that way by using the W key. Get rid of those extra characters. Oops. Fix up the sentence. For number 2, you were tasked with using insert. So move to the first difference and then hit that I key to move into insert mode. You actually don't necessarily need to exit insert mode. You can stay in insert mode the whole time if you want to, but you won't be able to use those motions. So if I hit W to move to the next word, right, it's not going to work. It's going to actually insert the letter W. So sometimes it's good to go back and forth, exit out of insert mode, use the W key to move to the next word, and then re-enter insert mode. It takes some practice. It takes some getting used to, right? By the way, this is a real quote from my she's not 10 anymore, but when I wrote this exercise, my 10-year-old stepdaughter, I saw her saying this to people on the internet, which I thought was pretty funny. I don't know. I feel like all of us have maybe heard somebody make this threat on some random online chat room at some point in our lives, perhaps. But yeah, you can use the insert mode to fix this one up and insert the missing pieces. I don't need to finish that up. That's fine. And then for the last one, for exercise 3, the hope was that you would use append. So my cursor's at the beginning of line 3. If I hit Shift A, it takes me to the end of the line, and then I can just type up the missing piece. Then finally, to save and quit our work, we're going to hit Escape. :WQ, that should save our work. And to verify that, you can always open it up again. Actually, I don't need to type it. I can just use the up arrow and verify that, oh yeah, it did save all my work, right? Those are the changes that I made. Okay. So those are kind of the basics, but I haven't actually shown you the true power of Vim yet and why people like it so much and how the power users get to be power users. I'm going to open up my Alice in Wonderland text again in Vim. And oh, there's that wonderful error message that I'll hit E to get past. And the next thing that I want to talk to you about are operators. So I've already talked to you about like the W key and how it moves you one word forward, or the B key to move you one word backwards. Those are called motions. We can combine motions with operators to perform editing tasks using this command mode without having to go into insert mode. So, for example, my cursor is right here on this word, posting. If I wanted to delete that word, I could, of course, go to the end of the word, go into insert mode and delete it. Or if I wanted to do things more in the Vim way, I would stay in command mode and I would use the delete operator in conjunction with one of the motions. So if I want to delete a word, I would say DW. And as soon as I say DW, Vim goes and deletes the next word in the line. And you can try it a few times, right? DW, DW. You can see that it's deleting one word at a time. where punctuation, any kind of punctuation, is considered a separated word or a space, obviously. Okay. If I'm in the middle of a word, so right now my cursor is in the middle of the word release, and I type D-E, that's going to delete everything from where my cursor is to the end of the word. That's what the E takes me to. That's the motion for the end of the word. If I want to delete the word in front of my cursor, I can say DB, delete the previous word, delete the word going backwards. Right? So you can see how when we combine operators with these motions, gives us a lot more flexibility. Let me introduce one more motion to you. Here I am on the word updated. If I want to delete everything from where my cursor is until the end of the line, the $ motion is what's used to refer to the end of the line. So if I say $, that will delete everything from where my cursor is to the end of the current line that I'm on. So operator motion is a common way of running commands, gives us a lot more flexibility, but we're actually not done yet. We're actually not done yet. Let's say I wanted to delete a few words out of the middle of this sentence for whatever reason. I could come down here, and I just showed you how to use the delete word command, right? So I could say DW, DW, DW 3 times in a row to delete 3 words. But there's another way. So commands can include operators and motions as well as a count. So if I wanted to delete 3 words, I could say 3DW, and that will delete the next 3 words after the cursor. If I wanted to delete the 3 words prior to the cursor, right, I would say 3DB, and that'll delete the 3 words prior to the cursor. So now with the counts, the operators, and the motions, that gives us a lot of power. And again, notice that we're making all of these edits, all of these changes with commands without having to go into insert mode and manually hit the backspace key for however many letters we want to delete. That is the Vim way of doing things. That's what separates the power users from everybody else. My all-time most popular, most favorite Vim command is to delete a line. I use this all the time. It's like 90, well, maybe not that much. It's probably like 70 to 80% of what I'm doing in Vim is deleting lines. And if you think about it in a coding context too, right? Deleting lines of code is something we do fairly regularly. In order to delete a line, if I move down here to the title, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, if I say DD, so 2 Ds, hit that D key twice, that deletes a line. That also has the effect of if I just sit here and lean on the D key, right, it'll just keep deleting lines. So if I just hold the D key down forever, it'll keep deleting lines until I let go of the D key. But perhaps a more controlled way of doing that would be to apply a count. If I want to delete the next 3 lines, I would say 3DD. And that way, instead of hitting DD to delete 3 lines, I can do it all in one shot. 3DD, delete the next 3. This is where we really get to start to see how Vim is so powerful, how Vim is so good at doing what it's supposed to be doing. Now, I just deleted a huge chunk of text, right? I just blew a huge chunk of text away. What if I didn't mean to do that? What if that was an accident? And I wish I could put that text back. On most text editors, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the Control-Z hotkey to undo things. But we don't have that in Vim. In Vim, it's the U key. So if I hit U, that's my undo key. You can hit U as many times as you need to go back. However, if you've made a lot of changes, instead of using the U key to go backwards, it might be easier to just hit escape :Q exclamation point. Because remember, that will erase any changes that I've made since I opened the file. So if I want to just put the file back to how it was when I first started, I think this is much quicker and easier than using the U key If I only want to undo a few changes, one or two changes, then the U key is probably the better way to go. Um, but I think it's useful to understand both options and what they are for. All right. Um, yeah, we're ready for more exercises. I want to get you as much practice as possible today. That is the goal. So I am going to go ahead and again, there's another file for you to open with Vim. So I would use the up arrows on your command line to go back to the curl command. And this time it should be super easy to just switch the 1 to a 2 to download the file you need for exercise 2. Here's what this file looks like. It's got 4 problems in there. And let me show you the instructions. So the instructions for the first one are to use the delete word command. The words that you're deleting are foods. So there's a few words in here that are foods, and I want you to use the delete word command, that's DW, to navigate through this sentence. So you should not need to use the insert mode at all for number 1. Actually, for number 2, you should not need to use the insert mode either to delete the extra chunk that comes at the end of the line. There's one command that can use to delete stuff from the end of the line. For number 3, all of these capitalized things are gibberish. So now instead of deleting one word at a time, I need you to delete 3 words at a time. So think about the commands that you would use to navigate through the sentence and delete these capitalized values. And then for the fourth one, you need to remove the extra lines. So there's a poem in here, but there's a bunch of extra lines that need to be deleted. So use the delete line command. Notice that none of these require you to use insert mode. I know it might be tempting to use insert mode because that's kind of the most familiar we are with text editors, but challenge yourself. Use commands to do these things instead. Talk to your neighbors if you need to, or flag me down if you get stuck and you need a push in the right direction. I'm going to give you another 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll go through this. 1 or 2 more minutes on these before I'm going to go over them. All right, I'm looking around and it seems like most people are done or close to done. So let's walk through these real quick. Uh, the first one asks us to remove all of the food words that are in this sentence. Again, I hope you use the W key to help move you down instead of the arrow keys because it'll get you there a little bit faster and get you used to using those motion keys to navigate around instead of the arrow keys. Once you get to a word that doesn't need to be there anymore, like mustard, you can hit DW. Actually, you only need one hand to do this exercise, right? Because the W key moves me forward, DW deletes words, and you can see how fast you can get at editing text that way, right? That's the Vim way of doing things, making it quick and simple and easy to navigate through and do simple edits on stuff without having to go into insert mode and backspace your way through every single word. So that's number one. Number two asks you to delete the rest of the line. So again, if you get down to the end here, deleting the next three words I think would work. But if you imagine the line is very long and you don't want to have to count all of the words that are in the line, recall that $ operator is what we use to travel to the end of the line. So if I say $, it just automatically cuts off everything from where my cursor is to the end of the line for me. For number three, you're asked to delete all of the capitalized words. So this is kind of similar to number one, except for when I get to a place where I think I need to delete stuff, I need to now use a count. So it looks like I have three words here. So I'll say 3DW to get rid of those. Looks like I also have three, so 3DW to get rid of those. Oops. I'll move here. This time I only have two, so 2DW. This time it looks like there's four. And then finally 2. So again, we can clear out a lot of stuff with that was another one that I could do with one hand, right? I didn't even need two hands to pull that off to navigate through. And then finally, number 4 asks you to get rid of some extra lines that are in here. So if I use the DD command to remove the lines that are excessive, we end up with a little poem that I wrote myself, if you can believe it. And that should do it. Although, hopefully you also played around a little bit with the U key to undo stuff, right? All right, great. It's at this point that I like to take a slight tangent, a slight detour. I've shown you how to do a lot of Vim stuff already. I certainly don't expect you to walk out of here today having memorized all of these commands, right? So especially when you're first learning Vim, I think having a cheat sheet available, and this top Google hit is one of the more common slash useful ones available. Right, you can see that all of the stuff that I've talked about is today is on here, plus a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm quite frankly not going to have time to talk about today. So, especially when you're learning Vim, access like this, the cheat sheet, I think is pretty essential. Once you get more familiar with Vim, you'll start relying on this cheat sheet less and less and less. But having a reference up, there's certainly no harm, no foul in doing that. Highly, highly encouraged. Something else I'd like to make you aware of, right? If you really like Vim and you want to get a lot more practice and you want to get better at it, you know, the whole Vim way of doing things is trying to perform a task with as little interaction as possible, with as few keystrokes as possible. So there's actually a game called Vim Golf. If you Google Vim Golf, it should be the top hit here. This is quite literally a game where you are presented with some sort of text editing task to perform in Vim, and your job is to accomplish that task using as few keystrokes as possible. It's actually quite hard because there, as I mentioned earlier, there are some Vim power users who are really good at squeezing a lot of functionality out of very few keystrokes. I think even I would have a hard time coming up with the shortest possible answers to some of these problems. But even if you're not getting the shortest possible answer, it's still good practice. And some would argue it's fun. That's subjective, I suppose, whether it's actually fun or not. But certainly a good way to get some practice, certainly a good way to get yourself more familiar with using Vim. So maybe something you can go home and take a look at if you're interested in building up these skills. Um, and even if you don't get any correct, you can still see some of the answers and learn from them, right? Learn how to run these commands using as few keystrokes as possible. So that's something that I like to point out to people. The next thing that I'm actually going to talk to you about has to do with registers or buffers, you might hear them called. Vim actually has registers available. So whenever I've actually been deleting stuff, it does get deleted, right? But it's not permanently gone. And we actually kind of saw that with the undo functionality, because I can always have Vim remembers what was deleted. And if I want to, I can have it put it back. And so, where does that stuff actually go when I delete it? It goes into what's called a register. And even though this is another little side note, maybe more of a philosophical part of computer science than a practical one, but the fact that Vim has commands and registers makes it Turing complete, meaning that we could actually write computer code, computer programs using Vim commands. That's not something that very many people are doing. It's not necessarily the best way to write a program, but technically you could if you wanted to. And the power users, the people who use Vim a lot, are definitely writing macros. So that's a very, very common thing to do with Vim, writing macros to help with efficient code editing. You can find a lot more information about that if you start digging into the Vim community and how they're using Vim to do coding types of activities. I'm just going to show you some of the basics, though, of using these registers. I think it's important to understand, for example, that if I delete a line, so right now my cursor is on this line, and if I use DD to delete that line, it is gone, but it's so and because it's in a register, I can tell them to put it back wherever I want. So I can move down a little bit and then paste that line that I deleted with the P key. So instead of Control C, Control V, we're using DD to delete a line. Or if I delete a word, same thing, right? It doesn't have to be an entire line. If I delete just a word or 3 words, same thing. I can use the P key to put it back, and I can also use the P key as many times as I want to paste it in there. So I can sit here, hold the P key down all day, and it'll paste it in once for every time that I hit that key. That's registers in action. It's them not just performing the commands that I asked it to, but also remembering the text that I am manipulating and allowing me to put it back. So that's copy pasting in Vim. using any of the deletion commands in conjunction with the P key, which technically stands for put, not paste, but potato, potato, I guess. Some other things that are useful to know, some other commands that I'd like to chat with you about. What if there's little typos? So maybe things are close to correct, but there's just a little typo. I see this capitalized word very, and maybe I just made a little typo in it. If I want to replace a character, I can hit the R key and then type in the new letter that I want. And you should hopefully see that that V at the beginning of the word turned into an M, or I can put it back. I can hit the R key and then type V. This The R is for replace. So this is, I mean, in my mind, it's quite literally the typo fixer, right? It allows me to skip going into insert mode just to fix little typos. Consider if I did use insert mode, what would that look like? I would have to hit I for insert, move my cursor over, backspace, then type in the new character. So that was what? Insert cursor, backspace, insert cursor, backspace, new character. So that's 4 keystrokes plus escape is 5 keystrokes to get me back to command mode, as opposed to just doing 2 keystrokes, R followed by the letter that I want, right? I know saving 3 keystrokes might seem trivial, but that's kind of a recurring theme, not just with Vim, but this whole class. The more effectively I can do things, especially with the keyboard, that's more time I'm going to have to think about other stuff and do other stuff. So efficiency is something that we really care about. What if I want to change more than just one letter? So maybe I want to change, maybe I see that the back part of this word, remarkable, and I want to change that to be something else. I can use C for change and then follow it with a motion. If I want to change the end of the word, I would say CE. And you'll notice that it deleted the end of that word and put me into insert mode so that I can now type, new stuff in here and change the end of that word. Or if we want to take this a step higher, a step farther, let's say that I want to change the entire rest of the line. I could type $, and that deletes the entire rest of the line, and now I can replace the rest of the line with whatever I want. So the replace command and the change command are 2 very useful commands for, again, allowing us to, we are using insert here. You can see insert at the bottom of the screen, right? But allowing us to at least minimize the use of insert. For single character stuff, we don't need to go into insert at all. And that's kind of a challenge that I issue to people with Vim. If the change that you're making is a single letter, you don't need to go into insert mode at all. And you shouldn't, ideally. If you have to change multiple letters, okay, you can't avoid insert in that case, but at least you can use the commands to help delete stuff for you so that you don't have to sit there and lean on the delete key or the backspace key to do all of that. So that's kind of the Vim way of doing things. All right. We're already at our 3rd set of exercises, so I'm going to quit out of here. And hopefully you kind of know the drill by now. Use the up arrows to go to your curl command and swap the 2 out for a 3. Here's what that file is going to look like, and I'll put the instructions up here right after that. So for the first one, this is another poem, but the lines are out of order. So use the delete line in conjunction with the paste to rearrange these lines to make the poem in the proper order. For number 2, it wants you to use the replace command. So we're just replacing one letter at a time. So use the R key to replace individual letters. For number 3, we're changing more than one letter. So you can see the first letter is correct, but these are wrong. So now we have to use not the replace command, but the change command. So the C command. And then finally, for the last one, we want to change the entire end of the line. So use the change $ command on number 4 to fix up this last sentence. Just like we did for the last ones, I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on these, and I have one more set of Vim stuff that I want to show you after this. So get to it. We'll go through it in 5 or 10. Yes. So from where your cursor is. Oh, not in the school word. The first part of the word. Just a couple more minutes on these. So that corresponded to what they. See how it says like title and sales stuff? Oh. All right, here we go. For the first one up here, this is a poem, but the lines are in the wrong order. So the idea was to use the DD command to grab a line. For example, I think this roses are red line is supposed to be the first line. So I'll use DD to remove it from there, but then scroll up and use the P key to put it in. Now, it is a little bit tricky. If I do the P key here, you'll notice that it's actually not quite where I want it. So we need to go one line above where we actually think it should be and then hit the P key. I believe this is the next line, so I'll take it off and paste it in there. And then the final line goes something like this. Another Professor Shook original creation there. I can't tell. For number 2, the idea behind this one was to use the replace command. So if I notice on this word here, this letter needs to be replaced with an S. So I can hit RS and then move on to the next word, replace that with an E. Use the W key to move to the next word and replace that. So you can kind of do this for all of these words, right? And I guess I don't need to do all of them. You kind of hopefully get the point by now. For making quick edits, we don't even need to bring insert mode into it. So if I'm just replacing a single character, that's a nice way to do it. But for number 3, we're replacing more than a single character. We're replacing multiple characters. So for this first one here, where I can see the first letter is correct, but the last 3 aren't, I would do something like CE. So the C says I want to change something. The E says the stuff that I want to change is everything from where my cursor is until the end of the current word. So it deletes that and puts me in insert mode. I type in what I want the changes to be, and then I'm probably going to hit escape to exit insert mode so that I can use W to move to the next word and then repeat the process. I want to keep the first W but get rid of everything else. Escape, W. This time I want to change the entire word, so I'll just leave it there. Change the entire word. So this is kind of a common way of editing stuff in Vim. So on and so forth. And then for the last one, you're tasked with changing the entire line. So put your cursor where the change needs to happen and hit C $. That gets rid of the entire rest of the line, and then we just need to type in what's missing, hit the escape key to get us out of insert, and then we can :WQ to save the results of that file. Alrighty, we have about 14 minutes left, and I have just a few more things that I want to show you with the time that's remaining. The next category of stuff is has to do with file navigation. So you may have noticed these numbers down here in the corner. Some students, sometimes these don't show up for students. So I get that question quite a bit, actually. So if you need to, definitely Google Vim show line numbers, and it will probably tell you this command, right? If you need to enable line numbers. So definitely give that a shot. My Vim has line numbers by default, so that's kind of a nice thing. This 99 is what line number I'm currently on, and then these numbers that come afterwards are quite literally how many characters from the beginning of the line that I'm on. So you can see that it will show me my position. If I want to go to certain points in the file, if I want to go to the beginning of the file, I use GG. The GG command, good game, takes us to the beginning of the file. If I want to go to the very end of the file, I can type capital G, so Shift G will take me all the way down to the very last line of the file. And if I want to go somewhere in between, especially if I know the exact line number that I want to go to. Let's say I want to go to line 123. I would type 123 and then capital G. And that will take me to line 123 in the file. If you want to go to a different line, type in 500, capital G. Now I'm on line 500. So that's a good way of navigating around, especially large files without having to hold down, the down arrow key for days to get there. Let's talk about searching. If I want to search, yeah, question. GG, little case, lowercase. Yeah, two G's, two lowercase G's will get you the first line. Let's talk about searching. So if I want to search, I'm going to type slash. You can actually see the slash at the bottom of my screen right now, followed by the term that I want to search for. So I expect the word Alice to appear a whole bunch of times because it's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, right? So if I type slash Alice, you can see it actually highlighted the first occurrence of the word that it found. So that's good. If I hit enter, it takes me there. So my cursor is now on that word that it found. So it'll take me to the first one that it finds. What if I want to go to the next occurrence of the word Alice? Well, hit the N key, and now you can see my cursor has jumped down here to this Alice. And if I hit the N key again, it's jumped down to the next Alice. But actually notice that it skipped this Alice because that Alice is in all caps. So that definitely matters, right? What you're looking for definitely matters. But you can hit the N key to jump to the next Alice. And if you want to go backwards, capitalize that N. So if I type Shift N, it's going to take me backwards, and it'll even wrap around. If I'm all the way at the top of the file, as I am right now, and I go backwards again, you can see, oh, I hit the top, I'm going to wrap around to the bottom and find the next one at the bottom, which is right here. So that's how we can search for things. But the very common way of using that search functionality is to do a find and replace. That is a very common thing that us coders use, right? So how do we do find and replace? It's a little bit more complicated. What we're going to do is we're going to type a colon, first of all. Then I'm going to type the letter S for search, I believe, followed by a slash. Then I type whatever it is I want to search for. So I'll search for Alice. And I wish to replace Alice with my own name just because it's a name. And then I'll type one more slash followed by a G. So the S part at the beginning is for searching. Then I type in what I'm searching for. The next part, the part that's my name, that's what I want to replace it with. And the G is what does the replacement command. And after I hit enter to run this, you'll see that that version of Alice that was highlighted is now changed. It's now my name, right? But it only did it once. What if I want to change all of the Alices, not just one of the Alices? We can tweak this command a little bit by using a percent sign out in front. So %S, what do I want to search for? What do I want to replace it with? G. And now, if this command works, it is, 397 substitutions found. So now if I go back up to the top, it says Doug's Adventures in Wonderland, right? And anywhere that it did say Alice, it says Doug. So we replaced all of them, not just the first one, but all of them. Whoops, that's actually not what I meant to do. Let me hit the U key, and it'll put them all back. Put them all back to Alice the way that it was before. Actually, I think there's another perhaps more useful way of using that search and replace command, which is to the same command, but with GC at the end. So G with the C is short for confirm. It's actually going to go through, show me each one. So it's showing me, here's the first time that Alice shows up. Do you want to replace this? Yes or no? If I type yes, it replaces it. If I type no, it skips it. So here it's going to take me through all of the different occurrences of the word Alice, and I get to type in Y or N. Do I want to replace this one? Do I want to skip this? So that's another nice way of manipulating things using that find and replace. Another important thing I want to show you, as coders, we definitely use things like parentheses, brackets, things like that. Sometimes it's nice, and we can, the parentheses, you can see the opening one is here, and the closing one is here. It's only like a couple lines away. Sometimes, if it's a big file, right, that closing bracket, that closing parenthesis might be way down in the file somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I can't see it. But if you use the percent key by itself, it'll actually jump. So I put my cursor on the opening parentheses, I hit the percent key, that moves my cursor to the closing parenthesis. I might actually be able to illustrate that better if I insert some of my own brackets here, right? Let me put in a curly brace here and then go all the way down and put a closing one here. So here I am on the closing curly brace. If I hit the percent sign, it jumps me up to the opening one, and vice versa. If you sit here typing percent, it'll take me to the matching one, back and forth. So that's a quick way to jump to the end of a method, for example. If you don't know where the end of the method is, or if I have a long for loop, show me where the closing bracket is for that for loop, right? It's a good one to know. And then finally, the very last thing that I want to show you, well, two things, I guess. Two more things I want to show you. I can run command line commands. I can run command line commands from Vim. The way to do that is to start with a colon and then put an exclamation point out in front of whatever command that you wish to run. So if I want to run ls, I would say colon exclamation point ls. And when I do this, you'll see that it temporarily takes me out of Vim, runs the command, says press enter to continue. And when you press enter, it takes you right back to where I was within Vim. So now I can actually run command line commands without having to exit Vim and come back into Vim, which as I'm coding could be a very valuable thing for me to be able to do if I want to check to see what files exist, for example. The final thing that I want to show you regarding Vim for today is, of course, Google is a good resource for Vim information, but Vim also has plenty of information available. So if I wanted to look up how to use something, colon help followed by whatever it is you want help with. So earlier in the class, I talked about D, the deletion operator. So if I type help D, it'll take me to the help page. And this is the stuff we talked about, right? We see delete, count, put a count, it'll delete more than one line. Or whatever motion, delete text that motion move. Put that into register X so that I can paste it later on in the file. So all of this is built right into Vim. Of course, Googling it might be a bit easier, but it's definitely good to know that this is here. And we exit out of the help just like we exit out of Vim with a :Q to get me out of here. Okay. I think that is all that I had on my to-do list for today. I just scratched the surface of what Vim can do, though. I would encourage you to force yourself to practice, right? I know that you don't necessarily have to use Vim to do stuff, but the next time you find an opportunity, push yourself. Use Vim to manipulate that file, even though you could use VS Code or some other thing if you wanted to. That's the way you get past the learning curve, is by practicing. So I remember when I first used Vim, it seemed like I was running into a wall a lot of times, seemed very confusing. But now you can see that I've been using it for many years and I feel pretty comfortable with it. That comes with practice. So try and force yourself to practice. I'm going to make you practice some more on Thursday because we're going to be definitely using Vim more and more in this class as we go through the next topics. But that's all I have for you for today. So stay warm out there, stay safe, and I'll see you on Thursday.